This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Joining us today is Jason Brewer, the Executive Chairman of Neo Energy Metals, following news that the company have ordered an updated order of magnitude CapEx and OpEx estimate for the Henkery's uranium project. Well, thank you for joining us today. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Mark. Very, very well.
Well, I wonder if you can perhaps explain this news here. It was quite a short RNS, an updated order of magnitude CapEx and OpEx. What does it mean exactly? What are you actually going to be doing here? What have you commissioned?
Look, essentially, it is an update of the previous feasibility study that was completed by Anglo American back in the early 70s. So Anglo American used to have this project. They took it all the way through to feasibility study level. They spent over $20 million doing that feasibility study. Very extensive. I can tell you more details about exactly what they did shortly, but they did a lot of work on it. Since then, there was additional work done by a number of other junior exploration companies focused on the exploration side. But this is the first real update on those feasibility study numbers. And we've used an independent party here, Erudite. We've done that. We've already done our internal numbers prior to listing. We want to put out the updated numbers, both from an OpEx, a CapEx, and also from some of the major items there, how long it's going to take to get them delivered, because clearly we're going for an accelerated development timetable too.
Right. Okay. So it's updating the feasibility study that was done by Anglo with costs that are applicable in today's money, in today's time.
Absolutely. Look, Anglo did, like I said, a full feasibility study, the mining, the processing, the marketing of this material. On the mining, they did 211 test pits. This is a shallow, open pit mining, no drill and blast. It's basically mining in sand, which is how the uranium mineralization is hosted. So part of the process is actually going through, revisiting what our plans are, because back then when Anglo were looking at it, they were planning on doing 300,000 pounds of uranium, of U3O8 per annum, of yellow cake per year. We're looking at doing 1 million pounds of uranium. So it's 3 times the size of what was previously considered in that feasibility study. That's part of this study. So from the mining perspective, it's looking at the new mining rates. From a processing perspective, they did 254 tons of bulk samples, which went through a pilot plant, which operated consistently for 3 months. Again, the results of that were very positive. The leaching and ion exchange, we need to update those costs to be in today's money, to confirm what we had in place internally before we listed, obviously, in November of last year.
Okay. So that feasibility study then by Anglo is incredibly detailed, I imagine, there with, you said they spent $30 million US, has done all those test pits and bulk sample pilot plants. So is that why it's going to take, you got 4 weeks there? You don't have to redo the study. It's really just updating it from the cost perspective.
Absolutely. Look, the feasibility study there confirmed those economics back in the 70s. Confirm the cost profiles and so on. The costs which were completed back then came in at less than $25 per pound of uranium, compared to prices which recently have touched 100. So back then, the only reason Anglo didn't proceed with this was obviously back in the early mid-70s, there was a massive fall in the uranium price. The uranium market it's changed significantly since then. As you know, uranium is the preferred energy source. It's the most efficient, most environmentally friendly. So from our perspective, we need to update those numbers. It was voluminous. I mean, I've seen the old feasibility study, the volumes and volumes of work that was done by Anglo, which is what you would expect from one of the world's largest mining companies. So it is a case of going in. Nobody is questioning the mining methods. Nobody is questioning the processing methods. What we're looking at doing is, okay, we're increasing the rates, the production capacity and so on, processing capacity. What are the new costs? Like I said, when we did the listing, we had our own internal assessment of them. We now want to put out numbers to give our shareholders and new investors the confidence that this is going to be one of the lowest cost producers going forward and can be developed over the course of the next. We want a development decision end of this year. We want production within 2 years. So we need independent numbers to go out by a very reputable engineering company in South Africa.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, you've obviously done your internals before you listed there, but to demonstrate that with an official feasibility study to the market there. So that will be the end result, that you will be able to publish that in its entirety, and it will demonstrate the economics of the project, but also give you a chance to get ordering equipment that you might need to order and start planning to get into making a production decision.
Absolutely. Look, it's something the market needs to understand. What is the cost? Mm-hmm. What is the production profile here? In parallel with this, we're going to be appointing very shortly a new drilling contractor to basically expand the resources here. Okay. We're only focused on between 5 and 10% of this mineralized trend of uranium. So there is a major re-rating on the cards from my perspective when we increase our resource base. That will support a mine life in excess of 10 to 20 years. When Anglo did their study back there in the 70s, they had a 9-year mine life. We are looking at getting plus 10 to 20-year mine life here. So we need that work to come out. As part of this, obviously with the capital expenditure, there are some major long lead time items, major bits of equipment. Part of the study which Erudite are going to be doing is identifying those and presenting us with the sort of scheduling. You know, there's some of those which we're going to have to order pretty quickly if we're going to meet first production within 2 years, like I say. So these are things which need to be identified now. We need to allocate capital to them, and we need to move forward relatively quickly.
Okay. Well, I know you'd like to move relatively quickly in the companies you're involved in. I was at the IPO of NEO towards the end of last year, and you were here in April, so not much progress has been made. It seems from an outside perspective, it's been a bit quiet on the NEO front. Is that fair to say? Or if it is, does it look, are you going to start pushing a bit more with force here?
Yeah, look, I think it's been quiet externally. There's been a lot going on in the background, particularly in South Africa. There was a number of permits which were secured in terms of the storing, the transportation of radioactive material, the uranium mineralization, which is needed for when we take samples from site to be assayed. So there's permits and approvals there. A lot of that work has gone on. The new core shed, again, needs to meet certain standards, given that this is uranium mineralization, which we'll be storing there. So there's a lot of work which has gone on in the background there. Some key management appointments in South Africa, which has been critical. And, you know, a tender process. There was half a dozen other engineering groups that we approached on this in South Africa. Sean is obviously an ex-project manager for some of those contracting groups. He did a very detailed review of that work. That's now been finalized, and obviously Erudites have now been appointed to do this work. We've gone through a process with drilling contractors as well. So it's now, like I say, it's almost that iceberg. You know, there's been a lot of work which has taken place under the surface. It's now almost opening up the floodgates for this flow of information, flow of updates, flow of news and results to the market. So it's a bit of a slow start, something I've been very uncomfortable with, I'll be honest with you, Mark. It's been frustrating to see. We now need to get this information to the market, but we've built up the momentum internally, and it's about delivering it out now. And this is the first of a number of announcements to be made over the course of this quarter.
Okay, good to hear. So about 4 weeks, we'll get a sight of that feasibility study. Jason, is that right?
That's right. We'll be publishing these numbers. Like I say, the key thing is they're independent. So, and it's been completed by a very blue chip company, very strong track record in South Africa across the mining consultancy work. So we're very happy having Erudite there. I've worked with them at Marula, so I know the quality of their work. So very pleased that they've got involved here.
And when would you be looking to get the drilling to increase the resource? Fairly soon as well?
That's happening this quarter as well. So we've got a number of assays which will be going to the lab literally this quarter. We have results this quarter on that. That will lead to an update and an upgrade in the resource numbers straight away. And then the subsequent drilling will in all likelihood lead to a very significant increase. One of the things, I was talking to Sean last night, we were going through the budgets and everything. All the drilling quotes, it's coming back at 20% cheaper than what we had budgeted for. So my first reaction for that was, well, if it's 20% cheaper, let's do 20% more. So I think we had, what was it, a 6,500 meter drill program. So I've just turned around to him, well, let's do 8,000. Yeah, and let's, if we've already allocated that capital, let's do it. We've got a big enough mineralized trend. Let's just keep going. So yes, over the course of this quarter, you'll see the drillers out there, you'll see assay results, and you'll see that updated resource numbers come out as well, which I'm fully expecting to be positively received and have an impact on the share price, of course.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Of course, Jason Brewer, the Executive Chairman of Neo Energy Metals.
Mark, thank you as always.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.